Hello and welcome to The Road Already Traveled, a podcast where we feature lessons from successful entrepreneurs and the professionals that serve them as they share their inspiring stories and insights. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, I'm Rich Schutte, your host of The Road Already Traveled, where we share lessons from entrepreneurs, like-minded business owners, and the professionals that serve them, providing insight to those listeners who are on the same journey. This episode is brought to you by Avalan, a wealth management firm dedicated to personalized financial, business, and investment planning for entrepreneurs as they make their way in our chaotic world. Are you ready to take control of your financial future? At Avalan, we believe wealth isn't just about numbers. It's about freedom, security, and living life on your terms. Wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, our team of experts is here to guide you every step of the way. No cookie-cutter solutions, just smart, personalized strategies designed for your goals. Using our unique Optimal Entrepreneur Program and an unwavering focus on world-class service, our relationships are built to last generations, helping clients achieve lifelong goals through a thoughtful and consultative approach. Visit avalanwealth.com today and start building the future you deserve. That's AVALAN wealth.com. Today, I'm actually super excited to have Chase Fiscus on the show. Chase and I go back quite a few years and have built a really solid friendship around helping each other in our businesses, serving a lot of the same clients, and providing amazing solutions. Chase is the founder of FCIS, it's Fiscus Commercial Insurance Solutions. And he actually founded that. He started it out when he was 19 years old, just a little more than a year after he graduated from high school. Of course, I tease him all the time that, that in and of itself was a milestone and accomplishment. But what he's gone on to build has been pretty cool. He's been helping this company continue to reach new heights ever since. As a second-generation insurance agent, Chase was born into the industry, or as he likes to call it, the cult. He started working at his dad's State Farm agency when he was only 15 years old, and 4 years later, with the help of a personal loan from his grandparents, he started his own agency, which today is known as FCIS. Chase's day-to-day role includes negotiating contracts with insurance companies, implementing new business strategies, growing the company, and providing the overall vision for FCIS. He's an outgoing and energetic, yet very detail-oriented guy. He's passionate about spending time with his clients, walking through their businesses, job sites, and does it as often as possible as he really gets to understand the risks that he's insuring. Born in Thousand Oaks, he grew up in Moore Park and now lives in Lake Havasu City with his wife and kids. He didn't meet his kids then, but he met his wife in high school. And like I said, he's got his 3 boys, which is a pretty cool little deal. So Chase, thank you for coming and hanging out and sharing some insights.
Thanks for having me today, Rich.
Yeah. Listen, my goal today is really to kind of, as I'd mentioned, this whole podcast is really designed, around two facets of entrepreneurs, right? We've got the entrepreneurs themselves, and then we've got the folks that serve those entrepreneurs. And, honestly, you wear both of those hats quite well. And it's pretty cool to see what it is that you've built up over the years. And, I've had the great fortune of being able to send many clients your way and watch what you're really able to do for them in terms of genuinely making a difference in how they are managing the risks around their businesses. It's actually really cool to watch, how you're able to uncover things, how you work with people, how you're very creative, and your relationship with the carriers that you work with is really powerful, in terms of being able to create amazing savings while actually increasing coverages and getting rid of those that aren't necessary. So I'm excited to talk to you today and maybe have you expand on some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
But first, I wanted to spend a little bit of time letting people get to know you at their own peril.
Right.
So, 3 or 4 personal questions, and we'll kind of dive into what you're doing as an entrepreneur and as an individual that serves our community.
Sure.
I want you to share something with the audience that, the average person may not know about you, right? Maybe a quirk, a strange habit, maybe some of your hobbies, because they're certainly vast and interesting. Talk a little bit about that.
I do have a lot of hobbies, and my hobbies probably lead to some of my strange habits and quirks and things that I do, or what I do throughout the day. A pretty avid mountain biker. Not a lot of people really know that unless they're close to me, but because of that and because of where I live, it makes me wake up at 4 a.m. Living out in the desert where it's 118 degrees today, 115 degrees today. Had to get up at 4 a.m. to be able to get out there at the trail at 5:15 before the sun comes up. So that's probably the weirdest thing people don't know about me is how early I get up in the morning and how little sleep I function on. Usually I'll sleep 4 or 5 hours a day, and we're like, how do you do that? I just manage and try and keep my energy up by doing, fun physical activities.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you've invited me out a couple times on a mountain bike ride, but as an old guy that's not in the greatest shape, I'm afraid to join you.
Right.
Yeah, things that maybe people do know about you. You are an absolute speed junkie. You are deep into multiple different forms of motorsport activities and fun.
If it has tires or an engine, I'm usually into it. So
yeah, or at least an engine, not even tires, right? When you're out in the lake.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So again, I've known you for a while. I know a lot of crazy things that you've done, but maybe you could share. I'd love to learn, like maybe one of the craziest things you've ever done.
I guess the answer to that depends on the statute of limitations. Oh man, I would. That's kind of a tough question, because a lot of people think some of the things that I do on a regular basis are crazy, but I don't. It's all managed, right? It's the risk that you take. Probably when I was younger, allegedly something maybe involving speed and tires and some cop cars, and potentially trying to run from law enforcement. I think the statute's up on that, so that's probably safe to talk about. But yeah, when I was a kid, we definitely had fun and got into some trouble. So
yeah, so maybe your journey into the world of entrepreneurship, kind of saved you from additional troubles, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. So was a good kid growing up. Didn't do drugs, didn't do anything like that, but he was always looking for fun, speed, and adventure. I hope my mom's not watching this.
A genuine adrenaline junkie, right?
Yep.
I'm sure you find some of that in your business too, and we'll get to it. So you mentioned you were born in Thousand Oaks, grew up in Moore Park. What was that like?
It was great. I mean, Moore Park was a really fun town to grow up in. It was back and forth between there and, kind of outside of town and in the Somas area, where there's a lot of farmland and open land. And again, was just one of those kids who was always outside. Always was on a bike, always was on a dirt bike. Had kind of my group of friends that we always hung around with. And, wasn't a big partier, wasn't kind of crazy like that, just kind of stuck to my own and was always involved in, like I said, not maybe necessarily team sports, but the individual sports and a lot of stuff with dirt bikes and bicycles.
So as you're growing up, I can't imagine that everybody aspires to wind up forming a successful commercial insurance agency at 19. What were some of the things you thought you wanted to do when you were out there raising hell?
Well, again, going back in the theme of things with engines and tires, I really wanted to race dirt bikes, but I quickly realized that I ran out of talent and lacked the skill needed to do that. So you start looking at, okay, well, what else can I do in and around this industry? And I always thought I wanted to own some products company, something that did something in that industry. The other thing was looking at, how often I was getting hurt myself and other people around me were getting hurt. And it's like, you can't really do this forever. So, how can I still be involved in something that I'm passionate about? And that was kind of what I thought that I wanted to do for the longest time. And I always had this thing in the background from my parents who were in this insurance thing and didn't really care about it that much, but was more interested in and how can I be involved in this thing that I'm obsessed with as a kid?
That's awesome. And you get a lot of that, right? As you visit with different clients, seeing what they're doing. I have that same benefit. I know what it's like to be able to kind of live vicariously through the people that we serve, right? It's pretty awesome, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, some of my favorite clients that I've had a chance to work with over the years are people that you've sent me over to and that we get to do some things for. And to be honest with you, every single one of them is just they're first of all, they're great people. But aside from that, they're also characters, and they're doing some really cool and interesting stuff. So, how better way to be able to have fun in your own business, right?
Exactly.
All right, so you're out of high school. You're 19 years old. You decide you're going to go do this, but you're not going to just go work for somebody. You've got this mindset around creating your own gig. So talk to me about that. How did that get started, and how did you start to build that as a genuine teenage entrepreneur?
Hey, it's so funny because people ask that and you look back and you really wonder, it's like, how did it transform from what it was to what it is? And I knew working for my dad, again, through high school, I was watching what he was doing and I was watching the clients that he was working with. And he was a little bit unique for a State Farm agent because he had more commercial clients or larger commercial clients in addition to the personal lines clients. And I'd see the larger premiums and I'd go, hey, these people only call you like once a year and ask you a question, or, they're pretty low service and they understand the value of their insurance. And, the homeowner will call you and they'll just be upset because their son got a speeding ticket and the rate went up $20 a month. And so how much money did you spend at Starbucks this week? Right. And they're calling and screaming at you because the premium went up $20 because their son or daughter was speeding. And I started to kind of look at that and I went, well, hey, I want to focus really on these accounts. And it was my dad who first said, well, if you want to do this, then, you probably want to look somewhere else other than State Farm. And for the longest time, I thought I was going to just basically kind of come in and work for State Farm and, at some point kind of gradually take over my dad's agency. And after he kind of told me that, hey, you may want to look outside of State Farm, I went and I spoke to a couple of his friends who were brokers and asked them what that looked like, and found out I didn't need to wait and I could basically take a chance now and start an agency. At 19 years old, you don't have a house payment, you don't have kids, you don't have any of that stuff. So it's like, well, what happens if I fail? I can just dust myself off and go back to college or figure out something else. So that was the risk element that I took myself was, well, what do I have to lose? And it worked out.
What was that like in the early days, right? I mean, you're 19-year-old kid, right? Didn't look old for your age, for sure, right? And now you're working with these seasoned business owners, trying to prove that you've got knowledge and the ability to help them. What was that like, and how were you able to position yourself into a trusted advisor, at such a young age?
I focused on certain areas. Again, going back to my dad, he told me, he said, you're going to have the same problem I did, which he started when he was 21 at State Farm. And he said, people are going to look at you and they know you're young and you don't have experience. So what you lack in experience, you need to make up for in knowledge. And I went, okay, I need to focus on specific areas of coverage and become an expert in that area. And that's basically what I did, became experts in different types of liability coverages for certain businesses, specifically contractors, workers' compensation, and then other coverages outside of that they need. And then from there, we kind of built the practice and started focusing on different areas of coverage in different industries.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I've introduced you oftentimes as like one of the smartest people I know when it comes to commercial insurance, and actually probably the smartest person I know in commercial insurance. So it's interesting to hear you, talk about, how you had to focus on being that smart guy, or at least well-studied, versus, your experience. That's awesome. Thank you.
When you're going in a guy's, 2 and 3 times your age. And that's really what I was doing. I was competing with guys in their 40s and 60s as a 19-year-old snot-nosed kid, right? So come in and be able to point out an insurance policy in black and white language. This is what this means. Go ask your broker to explain otherwise. And then they catch the guy fumbling and not knowing the answer. That's how you had to win.
That's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, my first interaction with you is when I had an errors and admissions policy that, that we have to carry coming due. And I was like, well, I'll give this guy a shot and see what he's got. And I remember, as you looked at that, you're like, well, it's really nice that you think you have coverage, but you really don't. But by the way, we can actually give it to you and marginally, barely with any impact, increase your premium, but actually create a coverage for you if something were to go haywire. And that was a real eye opener for me, right? Because we as consumers, right, of any product that we're consuming, right, and especially when we're business owners, it's like, we think we've got expertise, right, that we really don't. We have to feel, and those listening are definitely going to appreciate and understand this, like we have to feel as business owners that we know everything and we know it really well. And it's really only those that can kind of get out of our own way and recognize that we don't, that can really wind up moving forward and better serve their own businesses and as a result, better serve their clients. But that was a real eye opener for me, right? Because that was something that I, through my own experiences, should have had more knowledge about. And I thought I had it figured out. And I could not have been more wrong, right? So it's really taking those opportunities to figure out. And I would encourage anyone listening, right, with the business, that we don't think that we need to worry about our commercial insurance. Like, yeah, I got that policy. I've checked the box and I'm done. And we have no idea, right, truly as consumers, what it is that we're missing. We just don't. We don't know what it is that we have that we don't need, right? We're relying on our next door neighbor or our buddy, or our brother-in-law, right? And, they may or may not be those experts. So it's remarkable to see, how you've taken that role of really being an expert and being able to earn the trust of the businesses that you work with, not just through your stellar personality, but, through actual, hard and effective work. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
Again, you kind of wear two hats in this interview, so I'm not going to get super deep into either one of them, but I want to spend a little bit more time just on your entrepreneurial journey, so people can understand that you're really walking in their shoes, and then we can kind of focus a little bit more on, what is it that you're really doing to, to help people that are in our shoes. So I guess there's maybe a couple things that I want to highlight from the entrepreneurial side, right? And really, let's just call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. But maybe we go in reverse, right? Because I think that this audience is able to learn a lot, right, for their own selves. Not just hearing the successes, which we should be celebrating, but then also like the shit show, right? It's like, what happened? Where did I stumble, and how can I help you, right, as a listener, avoid that particular, disaster, right? So maybe there's something you can think about along the way that, that just really backfired on you, or was a real genuine lesson for you that you had to learn the hard way.
Oh yeah, we definitely have those. I think probably the most difficult one, and I think every entrepreneur has this, is knowing when to walk away and you didn't, and you put yourself in a position where something comes back to bite you in the ass. And that could be a problematic client. It could be a relationship with a vendor. But I mean, it was probably the first few years that I was in business. I got stung, I got bit, whatever you want to call it, from a client where I knew better. And you have that feeling where maybe I shouldn't do business with this person. Anybody who's flaunting about all these other people that they've sued, maybe you're going to be the next guy in the crosshairs, and you make a recommendation for somebody to do something, they don't do it, and then they drag you in, and it's like, I knew better. I should have never worked with this person. And I'd say that was probably the hard part when you get started out, is you take things you know you maybe shouldn't, or clients you wouldn't have otherwise taken. Today, that would have never been a client we would have onboarded. It would have been, hey, here's the door, you can leave, or we wouldn't have even entertained bringing them on as a client. But I would say that's probably the hard part, is when you are getting started and looking for that first paycheck or that next paycheck is taking something that maybe you knew you shouldn't have.
So, I mean, protecting the names of the innocent and all that stuff. I mean, we love stories here. Is there something you could dive into to make that bite maybe a little bit more tangible?
Yeah, I had made a recommendation to a client to purchase a certain type of insurance, and they didn't want to purchase it. It was a couple $1,000s a year for a business that did millions. And the person told me, my business does millions. I have millions of dollars. I don't need your insurance. And okay, that's fine. And me being naive and young, I didn't get him to put that in writing, get him to sign something saying, hey, we declined this, right? We knew we had the conversation. I knew that the guy was a loose cannon. It was just a rookie mistake and something that should have been handled differently. We did it before. We've continued to do it since. And protecting ourselves. But for whatever reason, I allowed something to happen, even though I had a gut feeling and knew that there could have been something wrong. And sure enough, there was a claim for that less than 6 months later. And I had to go before a couple lawyers and argue that we offered the correct coverage. So.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But, that story actually does, take the beginning of it and make it more poignant, right? For anybody in any business, right? In terms of really just, the art of CYA, right?
Right.
Making sure that we're not working with people that are of the same moral compass, right? That we may be.
Yeah. And again, it's, you have that intuition, those hairs on the back of your neck, whatever the heck you want to call it, your gut. And that's a very important thing to listen to. And again, I think that would probably be my biggest regret, I would probably say, is not focusing on that sooner. Because again, you're in kind of famine mode and taking everything you can to keep an agency going, or business going for that matter. It doesn't matter what it is, but know your worth and know when to say no.
Yeah, that's really valuable, man. Thank you. So you've gone from, kid with the personal loan into somebody that's that could now provide them to the next generation, right? You've been very successful with your agency. Maybe you can talk about one or two growing pains that were really difficult that you're particularly proud of getting over that hurdle at the time.
They're still happening, Rich.
They don't go away, do they?
They don't. And, as the agency grows and, now as I'm talking to you from our second location in Arizona, problems change and morph. And, it's always constantly something. I would say probably my biggest hurdle was getting started out and making that first hire and taking that, step out there to bring somebody on as your first employee. That was probably the first big hurdle. I had been an employee my entire life. I had never been an employer. I knew what I wanted to be. I knew how I wanted to be as a quote unquote boss, even though I don't think of myself that way. But that was probably one of my most difficult challenges in trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Yeah, and that's not easy. It is.
No.
Right. And so from that first hire, you've gotten better at it. I mean, how many people have you got working for you now?
There's 16 of us on the team now.
And you had mentioned your second office in Arizona, but your primary office is in Simi Valley, California, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
And that's where most of your employees are working out of?
Yeah, majority of the team is out of there. We got about 9 people there on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, the hires never really get that much easier, but at least you have a little bit more experience in making them, right?
Yeah, and culture is important. I've handpicked everybody on my team. They're all somebody I'd want to go have a beer with. That's kind of an important thing, right? And even amongst one another that they would want to go grab a beer with one another or go hang out with one another or whatever. Um, it's tougher the bigger that you grow, and that's the other side of it, right? Is as you continue to grow, bringing in more and more personalities and making sure it's all cohesive.
And that's actually a really fascinating statement, right? And a lot of us don't learn that until much, much later in our journeys. I had an issue personally with an employee not that long ago, and I was trying to figure out, why that happened. I was having a conversation with somebody else. I could have had it with you, about culture and about fit and about how important that is. And because you can't create a culture with people that aren't buying into it or aren't even of the mindset of the culture you're trying to create, right?
Right.
So oftentimes, and as I learned not that long ago, it's like it's more important to hire for culture and train for position, right? So long as the skill set is there,
Right.
than it is to find like a rock star in a position that just doesn't fit into your fabric of your company. Um, and since I made that change, it's a huge difference. And that's I'm glad you brought up that point because I think that that's certainly worth all of us, paying some attention to. Wondering why we've got these employee lawsuits or these people that never show up on time or don't work at the level you want them to or just don't get along with people. It's important to understand. It starts with culture. It starts with personality. It starts with, as you said, wanting to share a beer.
It's our work family. I mean, not everybody likes their family, right? But it's people you spend 7-8 hours a day with. I mean, that's more time than I spend probably with my wife and my kids in a waking day, right? I mean, when you start totaling that up, acknowledge that, honor that for your people, and you really, I mean, that's what you have to look at. Same thing for me. Like, I don't want to come in here and work with somebody who sucks or who's a pain in the ass to be around or, always down or miserable. I mean, you want everyone building each other up and good personalities. People have good days and bad days, right? But I mean, it's really just the fabric of the person that you're working with, and the people get along and want to be around one another.
Thank you for that share. Before we get into how you're operating and helping people, on their own entrepreneurial journeys, share with me a win. Like, share with me like one of those moments that it's like, hell yeah, that was epic. And then maybe talk to me about what led to that. Was it a mentor? Somebody that gave you some particular advice or was important to you in getting over that hurdle, and logging that win, or is it just one that came along?
Probably. I mean, it's, you always have the big deals that you win, and those are always kind of exciting, right? And I mean, that's my mistress. That's what I go after, still to this day. Those big wins. But honestly, I would say probably one of my proudest moments. Well, it's probably be two, and they've been pretty recent. About a year ago, I was acknowledged in front of a group of about 120 agents across the country and asked to kind of present and talk about our agency and how we run our operations. That was kind of unique, being, again, I'm still older now, but one of the younger guys up there, and being able to say how we kind of do things and run an agency that's not your dad's insurance agency. And just kind of what we've built overall, I think is something I'm very proud of.
Kudos, my man. That is truly, truly epic. Let's shift focus a little bit. Like I've alluded to this along the way, right? Professionally, I know the kind of impact that you have, right, with your clients, given that I'm one as well. I see what you do. I see the people that you work with, but I want to hear a little bit about, what you do, right? Some of the strategies you create to help create a better life for entrepreneurs, right? Maybe you can share a few examples or stories that are, for those that are listening, that they could learn from. But you gave us a kind of I wish they listened to me moment that you wound up hanging for. But yeah, talk about how you bring somebody in, how you actually can change the fabric of their existence in the space that you serve.
Sure. So you talk about, strategy. I would say that, everybody has a sales strategy, right? To sell something. I would say that our strategy is not to sell anything. right? So our strategy is caring, and that sounds cliche, but that's truly what you need to do in our industry. And I think with every industry, right? If you don't care about your client, you don't care about what they're doing, and you're not willing to take the time to go out there and look at something or talk to them about their operation and ask other questions, you're going to miss it. And I truly think that's the winning strategy. We have checks and procedures that we go through as an agency, on the insurance side, just as an accountant would, on a tax return, or a lawyer would if they're reviewing a handbook. We have our procedures as far as that goes. But again, I would say the core strategy is really caring and taking the time to understand your client's business. Looking for blind spots would be part of that. And I would say is the largest part of it. Will always come to you with, hey, this is what I need. Well, what do you need? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You think that you need workers' comp because the law says if you have employees, you need workers' comp. Well, yes, that's true. I need GL because I have this. Well, what else? What else is out there? And it's up to us to kind of spot those blind spots and caring enough to, again, walk through a client's operations and understand their relationships with employees and independent contractors, or warehousing and shipping and receiving, and if they have an international demand or they're using cargo. All of those are recommendations potentially for different insurance policies in blind spots that they're not aware of. I just got my first contract, with Home Depot, and it says I need this. Well, you may have had that insurance in place for the past 5 years or 10 years, and your business is more changed, and you have a ton of exposures that if there's a loss for, you're not covered.
Mm.
And that's the value that we provide is ultimately bringing these liabilities to light for people and explaining to them that you can either insure this or put it on your balance sheet, essentially as a liability, an unfunded liability, that if something happens, you're going to have this off your balance sheet, right? And it's that education component where, again, we're not selling you anything. It's here's the information. Here's how you can finance your losses. Because at the end of the day, that's what insurance is.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're talking about blind spots. I'm curious for my own self. How many people, when you first work with them, have client data, right? We all do. Servers, computers that ultimately we need to get to every day and rely on, yet don't have any kind of cyber insurance protection. Is that a big number, or are people figuring that one out? Because I
people are figuring it out. Finally, unfortunately, I would still say it's a large number of small businesses don't have the coverage. It's definitely increased more than it has in the past. Most of our clients all have cyber. All of them have been offered it.
Or signed off that they don't want it.
Right. No, we don't want this in an email. But we offer it all the time. Again, anybody with an e-commerce site, even contractors, employee records, you could have customer information. These breaches are costly. But yeah, it's definitely something that's increased in relevancy and popularity because I think more and more other types of professionals are aware of it and they're advising their clients to get it if their agents have failed to do that.
Yeah, I've had a couple clients that haven't had it, and boy, do they wish they have, when all of a sudden they go to work one day and can't get into their computer and somebody's basically holding it hostage for ransom. Mm-hmm. Those are times you wish you knew what was out there, right? That was just for my own edification, because it seems to me like that would be a hugely unthought of liability, for your average person.
Right.
Listen, these stories are actually great. I think they're super helpful. You'd said something earlier that I kind of latched onto. It's like we're not your father's agency, right? Or like it's not your father's Oldsmobile. I think was for an old guy like me might resonate with that statement. As Oldsmobile tried to become like a little bit more cool.
That worked out for him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hard to find any of those anymore. But tell our audience why somebody needs to work with somebody like you or FCIS for these types of needs? Why aren't you like your father's Oldsmobile? What really sets you apart? I mean, I heard the care, I heard the, all of that, but those are definitely a key ingredient. But there's something as I've connected people with you that's just different. And so why does somebody need you as opposed to, John Smith down the street with a different setup?
There are good agencies out there. There are other good agents out there. I know a few. I also know a lot of bad agents. I would say that people would need us or someone like us because of, again, I know the strategy we talked about caring, but as far as what we do on the back end and our kind of secret sauce, if you will, reviewing the insurance contracts, the relationships that we have on the back end, the team that we have in place to service the clients. And then again, coverage strategy, right? Leveraging different lines of coverage. And there are other agents out there who will do this for you as well. But I would say that that's some of the key benefits that we bring to our client is truly understanding what they are doing and designing an insurance program for them that fits their risk profile.
Okay. Yeah, that makes good sense to me. Talked about that and that. You talked about mountain biking as something, you're avid about, getting up at, before the sun rises to be able to do that. I mean, would you consider that to be, part of a daily ritual? Do you have others that you participate in that kind of keep you ready for walking into the office and serving your clients at a high level?
I have to do something physical every day. So I hate the gym. I'll go 2 or 3 times a week. If I can't be out on a bike or a kayak or dirt bike or paddleboard or something along those lines. But I try to balance, because of my stress levels, doing something physical. And I generally try to do it the first part of the day, so that everything else throughout the rest of the day is kind of a little bit calmer.
Nice. All right. So I'm going to make a comment. Then I'm going to give you an opportunity to share with people where they might be able to find you. And then I'm going to ask you one last question before we wrap. But what I am going to say is I'm going to implore anybody listening to this, right? Business owner that's listening to this, entrepreneur that's listening to this. We truly don't know what we don't know, right? And as an example, you walk into your doctor and they tell you, that, oh, you got cancer, you got a week to live. Those scenarios, or a month to live, whatever it might be, those scenarios, what do we typically do, right? We go seek out a second opinion as soon as we can. Some of the highest net worth people in this world regularly and routinely are seeking second opinions on what they're doing, right? Be it with their insurance, their portfolios, their businesses. So I would implore you to listen carefully to when Chase tells you how to find him. It doesn't cost anything, if maybe a little bit, but I would say anything to have a comprehensive look at what you have, right? To be able to see where those blind spots are and understand, what you have that maybe you don't need, et cetera. So I would definitely tell you that second opinion, with your business insurance coverages is every bit as important, because that is your lifeblood, right? These are our babies. Is every bit as important as getting that second opinion on a diagnosis that you may get from a doctor. So that being said, and my little soapbox being over, because I just feel so strongly about it. Chase, how can people find you to put you to work for free to to review their stuff, to tell them it's okay?
Just mention Avalan so I can send you the bill. www.fcisonline.com. You can also email me directly at chase@fcisonline.com. Happy to answer any questions or review any coverage for any of the Avalan people out there.
Yeah, that's absolutely something that you need to think about. So, all right, my last question before we wrap this thing. At the end of the day, right, when everything's all said and done, maybe you're winding down your business and you're just going to check out and go retire. Maybe you're approaching your last breath. You can think about it in whichever term you prefer, but What do you want to be remembered for?
Making people laugh and generosity.
That is a perfect ending.
Pretty simple.
That is a perfect ending. Chase, this has been a pleasure. I learned some things about you that I hadn't before. I appreciate taking the time and providing the education to our listeners. This is going to be it for this episode of The Road Already Traveled. Remember, we're available on all the most popular podcast platforms as well as on YouTube. So find us, subscribe, hit like, share with your friends because, as we build an audience, we can build the value we provide. So until next time, we'll see you on The Road Already Traveled.
As always, thanks for joining us on the Road Already Traveled podcast. We're grateful you've joined our community and look forward to seeing you again for our next installment, so be sure to click subscribe so you won't miss a thing. This communication is for informational purposes only and does not purport to be a complete statement of all material facts related to any company, industry, or security mentioned. This material is limited to the dissemination of general information pertaining to its diversified services. The opinions expressed reflect our judgment now and are subject to change without notice and may or may not be updated. The information provided, while not guaranteed as to accuracy or completeness, has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable. Financial planning, advisory, and/or consulting services offered through Avalan LLC, a registered investment advisor. Prospects or clients who take advantage of any free consultations or services are under no obligation to hire Avalan LLC as their investment advisor. Listeners who are not market professionals or institutional clients of Avalan LLC should seek the advice of their financial advisor before making any investment decisions based on this communication. Additional information on any securities mentioned is available on request.